Welcome to the Leadership in Land podcast, where we talk about what actually moves the needle in the land business. This show isn't about getting rich or quick schemes or magic mail pieces. It's about leadership, systems, decision making, the stuff that you just happen to figure out after your third or fourth pricing mistake, or maybe just your first. This deal looks great on paper, guy, in a moment. Well, tune in with me today, my friends, and let's dive right in.
You're listening to the RE Tipster Podcast Network.
Okay, so quick question for you. Have you heard of our Skool community? I just want to make sure to invite you to check that out. If you're listening to this episode, it's actually kind of old, to be honest with you. And so if you want our latest, if you want our greatest content we're putting out, real conversations about leadership, decision making, building a land business that actually works in the real world, get inside our Skool community where you get access to the free leadership course, plus bonus episodes, discussions, and insights that honestly just don't make it onto the podcast. So if you're serious about this, you want to learn more about leadership, get in the community, check it out, leadershipinland.com or school.com/leadershipinland. All right, let's get in the episode. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Leadership in Land. I'm your host, Dave Denniston of Generation Family Properties and the Land UnConference. I am honored to continue the mission of helping 1,000 land investors be the best leaders that they could possibly be. And here to join me in that mission, I have a very special guest today. This guy, he is incredible, graduated college at age 19. He's the oldest of 14 kids. He had a background in working on some oil fields. He's done accounting, CPA type work for a number of years. As a matter of fact, he works with the Wilfs, the owners of the Vikings, in developing real estate around the training facility. And he then got into house hacking, rentals, and is doing land now. Please help me welcome to the podcast, Austin Hendrickson. Austin, welcome to the show, buddy.
Morning, Dave. Appreciate the kind intro there.
Hey, you bet. You bet. Glad to have you on. Have you been on podcasts before? Is this your first one?
I've been on one, so this is my second.
All right. We're not number one. We'll be number two. That's okay. I'm okay with that. There we go. All right. So, Austin, I gave a little bit about kind of your background, kind of a snapshot. I don't want to talk too long about this, but just give us a little color more to kind of what I was talking about.
Sure. Can kind of keep it short and sweet. To your points, graduated college at 19, was a real estate CPA for about 5 years, working with construction and real estate companies. Currently working for the Will family with MV Ventures, developing a lot of commercial and multifamily projects around the Twin Cities area in Minnesota. And then my personal land business, we kind of started off doing houses, fix and flips. We did some apartment syndications. And then we've been doing small little land deals since 2017. And then around 2020, really jumped up to some bigger land deals as well.
Love it. And with that background, what do you think you kind of brought as a leader in starting your own business back when you started doing real estate and particularly land?
Yeah, I think I brought the financial acumen. I could look at deals and numbers came pretty easily to me. But honestly, when I started, I didn't know a lot about real estate investing and kind of had to learn the hard way and just kind of trial by fire or trial and error. And it was a learning process, but I was glad I jumped in.
Love it. And in terms of kind of your team and who you have around you today, as of today, who do you have around you? Who's on your team?
Sure. So I've used VAs in the past. I've used them from anything from marketing, websites, logos, skip tracing, data mining, cold calling, all that kind of stuff. But really right now, we've kind of focused our pursuit to the larger deals. So I have one person that works for me, and she kind of handles the texting, the comping of the land, finding land for me. And then we've kind of moved away from the VAs. So it's really just me and this one other kind of part-time employee.
But you've changed direction, it sounds like. Can you talk through that process a little bit? What were you doing before versus what you're doing now? You mentioned going after larger deals now today.
Yeah, really, when I stepped back and just looked at the business overall, I said, okay, what's the money I'm making? Where's the profit coming from? And also, kind of how fast am I doing deals? And I realized the small deals are great. They keep the lights on, they pay the bills. You might find some decent properties now and then again. But when I really started doing some bigger deals, I was like, okay, these things take probably a couple years from start to finish to close, but the payouts are substantially higher. You could make as much on a larger deal as you did on 100 plus smaller deals. So I said, okay, how can I really focus in my processes and change my team to kind of fit that model? And I tried VAs. So I had people kind of mining different areas. I showed them that, hey, this is what I'm looking for, gave them the parameters, and they would kind of go and pull properties. They did a good job. And then I said, okay, how can I outsource this even further? And I hired US based VAs to do cold calling for me. And I was paying them good money, 25, $30 an hour. They're reputable. They did great work. But what I really found is when you're going after these bigger deals, the owners are going to they're going to pepper you with a lot of questions. They're going to say, who are you? I want to speak to the owner. If they're going to sell a piece of land worth a couple $1,000,000, they can tell when someone's a VA and someone who knows real estate. So I kind of took that back over, but I gave it a shot.
Give us an idea when you say smaller deals versus larger deals. Like, what does that mean to you? That could mean different things to different people.
I would say for me, smaller deals are anything from, $5,000 to 75,000. So in that range. And then kind of the medium sized deals for me anyways would be 75 to 300 ish. And then anything over 300,000 would be considered a larger deal. But most of the large deals I go after are probably seven figures. So 1 million to 10 million, somewhere in that range.
Wow. Big deals. So I'm curious to know, because that's huge amounts of money. Like, as a leader, you're shifting risk, certainly in terms of, you mentioned it's a long cycle to get that. Like, how are you paying the bills then, if that's what you're doing now?
Yep. So still going after the smaller deals to pay the bills. So we still have our marketing machine. We're texting people. We're sending out direct mail. And we're not doing as much cold calling on the smaller stuff. So it's more just texting and direct mail. But we kind of use that to pay the bills and keep the lights on. Got
it. Now, it sounds like it's you and a full-time VA. So you're keeping it lean, you're keeping it mean with a pretty slim staff at this point. Like, to do the volume that you're doing and keeping the lights on and still working towards the future, like, are you able to get the volume you want to get at this point, or what's that like? Yeah. And I guess I would preface, I'm using kind of part-time VAs just for some miscellaneous stuff. It's actually my girlfriend who's doing it kind of like part-time with me. So she's handling the texting, comping the land, and it's super easy for us to kind of review stuff and say, hey, this is how I'm doing stuff, and kind of course correct. But I would say from a volume standpoint, maybe I have a different mindset than a lot of land investors. I don't want to do the small stuff full time. So it's kind of, hey, can I do a deal a month just to keep the lights on? And then for the big land deals, can I get one big deal every year or two? So that's kind of how we're approaching it. So you're just looking, hey, just give me one big deal a year, and I'll be set after a few years. But in the meantime, you're getting a couple every month and just keeping things moving forward. And it sounds like you still have your normal full-time gig at this point. You're not full-time land. Am I understanding that right, or am I out there? Yeah, that's correct. So part of the, I guess, benefits of having a job I really love, it's a dream job for me, kind of get to work with sports and real estate and kind of see a lot of interesting and cool projects, as I don't really want to do this full time right now. So it's kind of the reason I'm doing it part time, and I'm not trying to, send out 10,000 mailers a month and get, 20 deals. I just don't want to do that right now. Absolutely. Well, you got to know what you want, right? And the amount of time you want to spend and what that looks like. How did you consider yourself as a leader kind of coming into land? If you've been listening to this podcast and thinking, man, I wish I had a group of people doing this at a high level. Well, that's why we created the UnConference. This isn't a sit in your seat, take notes kind of event. It's small, it's intentional, and it's built for real conversations with people who are actively buying, selling, and scaling in land. Last time we had some incredible breakthroughs and a lot of people realizing that they're playing too small. Just listen to what Anshul had to say here.
I knew a lot of people before I came to the UnConference. They are heavy hitters. They're doing amazing business. And like, if these guys wanting to be there, I need to be there too. So here I am, first day, amazing, great people, great ideas, just having a good time.
And our next mastermind style event you don't want to miss out on is coming up in May 2027. And if it's anything like the last few years, spots will go fast. So if you're serious about growing in this business, go to www.landunconference.com and apply. Again, that's landunconference.com.
I would say that when I was first starting out, I probably wasn't as confident as a real estate leader because I didn't really know it myself. But once I started doing a lot of deals, then I became more confident and I could kind of show people, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Here's the parameters. Here's exactly what I want, why I want. So I'd say right now, my leadership style is more direct. I actually listened to a good audiobook recently. I'm trying to think of the title. I think it was called Buy Back Your Time.
Sure.
By Dan Martell, I think it was. And one good tip that he had in there was he videotapes everything he does or screen records. So I really started doing that. So for example, when my girlfriend's comping out land, I'll just screen record me reviewing it and saying, hey, here's what I'm looking at. Pretty much any thought process that's going through my head, I'm just talking out loud, reviewing the comps. And then she's gotten way better just saying, oh, here's why you comp. Okay, there was some wetlands here I missed. There was some zoning, topography, maybe, these were closer to the airport or railroad or kind of whatever. And she's really getting that real-time feedback from the videos.
Love it. So you're creating a library of videos. How are you organizing them? Because you could have like a crap ton of videos and then it's hard to find how do I do that? So how are you organizing that to
so we have
only have them?
Google Drive set up with different folders. So I'll have one for land comps. So all the small deals, we're looking through the land comps. The big undeveloped land, I'm reviewing her kind of site selections, saying, hey, here's what we're looking for. Here's why I don't like this one. And then also if I do some cold calls, sometimes I'll just screen record myself or record myself on the phone and say, hey, here's how the cold calls are working out. But then I also do it for, reviewing our texting software or the direct mail strategies or pulling data from, we use First American Data Tree. So kind of just segmenting that into the different folders, and then she can kind of go in as she has time and watch them.
Love it. Do you have other things kind of built in to help the team? I know some folks might have like checklists or like a operations manual where you have not only videos, but kind of written out stuff. Do you have anything like that at this particular point?
Yeah, pretty basic checklist, just going through the properties, right? Checking off topography, wetlands, zoning, neighboring properties. I mean, your basic stuff, but I wouldn't say it's anything crazy. It's just a one-page sheeter.
Just one-page sheeter. Anything unique? You think in your processes relative to when you talk to other land investors, like here's something I'm doing that's kind of got a different spin on it, or in managing the team.
I would say probably unique to me is I only work in Minnesota, or mostly 90% of my deals. So I have a lot of notes on certain neighborhoods or certain areas. Certain counties have different regulations. Certain towns have different zoning requirements. So I have kind of a huge master list. So if I do a deal in Golden Valley or, Duluth or something, I can refer to my notes and say, oh, in this city or county, here's how we've done it before. And also certain market data and comps, here's where land is selling in that specific city. So it's really been a big help for me. And I feel like I'm not starting over from scratch every time I look at a deal.
Love it. Is that just like a big Word document? Is it a database? Like how are you storing
it? Excel sheet with multiple tabs. So pretty much a tab for every kind of county or city. And then if I have notes, I'll just kind of create it in that tab. And it's kind of a living document. I'll add on to it as I need to.
Love it. What we have going on we have a CRM that we've custom built through Podio. And so we have a whole kind of due diligence section, and then a separate one that's kind of our common areas. And so what will automatically fill in the information on due diligence when it's like, oh, we've been to this area before, just spit it right in. So that way it's there, and then still make a call just to double check, right, that everything's the same. But that's helped us a lot. Just save time when you're doing volume, that, hey, we're doing the same thing over and over and over again, going back to some of these same areas. So it might change from time to time, but for the most part, it doesn't, right?
Yep, 100%.
Love it. So we talked a little about how you felt yourself in the past. How have you evolved and changed in terms of leadership style, things you've picked up in managing your VAs successfully, the ones you've had in the past, as well as, who you have now?
Sure. I would say with my full-time job, now that I'm managing a larger team, I've kind of gotten some better leadership experience. I've taken a lot of leadership courses provided by the Vikings and other organizations. And I would say that I really just try to explain things better on the front end and make sure the communication is more clear and concise. So when I'm hiring a VA, I'll sit down and say, here's exact metrics that I'm going to measure you on. Here's exactly what I'm going to be looking at. Because a lot of times I would hire someone in the past and I would have an idea of what I wanted them to do, but I wasn't explaining it clearly. Like they didn't know exactly what they would be measured on. So just on the front end, I would say if you can spend even an extra hour when you're hiring a VA, just sit down and really run through exactly what you're going to be testing on them and exactly what you're going to be looking at. If they know you're looking at a certain area, I found this in the full-time job too, the VA or employees, they're going to spend way more time on that area because they know they're going to be tested or measured on it.
Love it. No, that's so good. And I would reiterate on that too. I've been learning this as a leader the last 2 months as we've totally rejiggered our team, that repeating that constantly, that, what is your mission and what are your KPIs basically? And how are you doing versus those KPIs? Because that way it takes the emotion out of it, right? And they know, like you said, what to be shooting for, that, hey, this is the primary thing that you're being measured by in performance. What about, you mentioned you've taken some courses, leadership courses. What was the best one? The one that really just sticks out to you saying, man, this was like the best course I took.
Took one recently. It was with Steve McClatchy. He's done a lot of trainings for sports teams, Apple, Google, big companies like that. And really his main takeaway is he said, hey, no matter what you're doing, if you're a full-time employee, you're an entrepreneur, kind of whatever you got your goals in life, you can break it into 2 areas. He said there's leadership and there's management. And he said management is really just making sure the lights stay on, making sure the business chugs along, does what it always has. He said leadership to him is improving the business and making it better. So he said if you're taking, like, let's take a landed business, for example, if you're doing a deal a month and that's what you're doing and you just want to keep rolling that's just management, but you're not improving, your CRM or your marketing strategies. That's really not leadership. So that was pretty big to me. And then he was also big on scheduling kind of leadership improvements during the day, because really what most people do when they wake up and kind of don't have a plan for their day, they're going to do whatever's most urgent. And usually that's that other people have for you saying, hey, I need this done. I need this done. So he really said, hey, block leadership or kind of improvement areas into your day. So I've really started doing that. And it's really been helpful just focusing on bigger, longer term goals that maybe if you didn't block it in your calendar, you're probably not going to get to it.
And how are you applying that in your land business with that in mind? Like what kind of goals or things are you blocking out that are helping you?
So for me, part of the reason I've been chasing these bigger land deals is I've had the experience of the development, the entitlements, and the connection. So to me, I've started networking more, whereas before I was like, no, I'm too busy, like in the business. I don't have time to go out and network and meet certain builders and that kind of stuff, or bankers. So I've really been trying to kind of get out there more and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm looking for. If I can provide value to you, let's talk.
Do you feel like you're kind of naturally a connector like that? Or is this like a stretch thing for you where you're really kind of pushing yourself to be something that's out of your comfort zone a little bit?
I'd say early on, I was pushing myself. Like I was naturally more like, hey, let's just get nose to the grindstone, get the work done. But kind of over my experience over the last 7 years, I would say it's a skill just like anything, and you can build it. So I'd say now it comes pretty easy to me, but in the beginning, it wasn't something that I was, looking forward to do. Same thing with cold calling. When I first started cold calling, I didn't like it. Now I can cold call no problem, but it's really just a skill that can be learned.
It's like working out, right? It's a muscle that you develop that hopefully gets easier with time. In terms of kind of some of your natural abilities as a leader versus things that maybe you're not as naturally good at, how would you look at that in terms of how you're leading your land team and stuff like that?
I would say I'm naturally pretty good at tailoring my leadership approach. I feel like there's certain VAs or certain people I've hired in the past that want to be micromanaged and they want to have more hands-on guidance. And there's certain, even in my full-time job, certain employees that say, hey, I want to prove myself to you. And then once I do, I kind of want to run my own thing and you get involved when I ask you to or when there's problems. So I'd say that's a big thing. I would say there's really no one size fits all to leadership. It really depends on who you're hiring. And also, if you don't want to micromanage someone or handhold them, tell them that up front. And a lot of people will just tell you right away, hey, I'm not that proactive. I'd rather have a lot more hands-on. Maybe it's not the best fit. Maybe you should find someone else.
Where do you lie on that scale? Are you someone that's like, you don't mind the micromanaging? Or are you someone that's like, I don't want to deal with anyone who I have to do that with?
I would say I'm on the other side of the spectrum. I don't want to micromanage, right? I want someone who's capable, who can do their job, who's motivated, who's proactive, who's coming to me with questions as they need to. But I would rather kind of say, hey, this is your role. I'm going to let you run with it. I'm going to give you support for sure. And I'm going to give you feedback as needed, but I don't want to be in there every single day, kind of showing you how to do stuff. Pretty much if there's a problem, I want you to come to me and say, hey, here's what I think we should do. Here's a couple solutions. Here's the best one that I've came up with. And now what do you think? So I'd rather someone do that than come to me and say, hey, here's a problem. And I say, okay, what should we do about it? And they have no response. I would rather have someone come up with some suggestions.
Yeah. No, that's good. Good stuff. And what kind of tools, Austin, are you using to help you with land in particular, with leadership? Not running the mailing, let's say, but like in terms of being a leader, keeping track of hitting these targets and stuff like that.
I'd say we're probably pretty old school when it comes to technology. I'm a big Excel guy, right? I work with Excel a lot. So I'd say Excel's big. We track our KPIs in Excel. We played around with some CRMs. We really just didn't feel for our business. We're not doing a ton of volume. We probably send out 2,000 kind of direct touches a month. So it's not huge. We can kind of manage it ourselves. But as far as like the leadership specific, I kind of touched on it. Screen recording for me is a big one. It just gets that real time feedback. And also you don't have to sit in the same room with someone, right? If you have a VA, you can screen record, hear yourself talk, and then send it off to them. So I would say those two are probably the biggest ones. No hidden gems on the technology side.
Well, let's talk about Excel a bit, because there's a crap load of things you could be doing in Excel, and like, are you? Is it all manual that you're manually entering in a bunch of stuff in spreadsheets, or how does that work? And what are you looking at within Excel to help you as a leader?
Yeah, we track all of our deals in Excel. Just have a master deal tracker, so I kind of know my net profit year over year. We track all our KPIs, our kind of cost per lead, how much it costs us to mail, to cold call, all of our other fixed costs. We amortize it out and say, okay, here's how many deals we need to break even. Here's how many deals we need to make, 20 grand. And then obviously the big deals are kind of the whale that we're hunting, and we're reeling in the small fish as we go. So I would say it's nothing complex, but just basic P&Ls, pro formas, and KPIs.
Love it. Is there any one KPI that really matters for you in your business, you think, right now?
Yeah, I would say it's cost per acquisition, just knowing how much dollars that you got to spend and how much you're making. So if you're flipping little desert squares out in Arizona or New Mexico and you're making $500, well, now your cost per acquisition better be pretty low. But if you're making $10,000 on an average flip, now you can spend some more money in marketing. You can spend some more money on the phone software, the CRM software, and things like that.
And how do you think about, in your case, as an owner of the business, dealing with cash flow, I'm very curious to know on these $1 million plus deals. Like, I don't have $1 million sitting in the bank to go and deploy and buy a bunch of stuff. How are you able to financially make that work? Like, what does that look like, what you're doing?
Yeah, I'll give you two sides of the coin. One when I first started out, and one what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So when I first started out, I had $3,000 in the bank. I was like, all right, how can I make this work? I sent out some mailers. I got a lead. And this guy's like, hey, I'll sell it, but I don't want to fire sale it. I was like, all right, what do you want for it? He's like, 15 grand, South Minneapolis lot. I was like, okay. I comped it out. It's probably worth 50. I'm like, this is a great deal. But I didn't have 15,000 in the bank. So what I did is went out and found some guys that would put up the money, but they're like, I want like 80% of the deal. It's like, nah, it's too steep for me.
Yeah, 80%.
I went online and I just Googled personal loans. I got one through Goldman Sachs for like 12 grand, but I ended up signing a contract for deed with that guy. Put 3 grand down, but his wife said you got to pay it off within 1 year. So then I went and got that personal loan, paid it off in a month, and ended up selling it to the neighbor for like 45 grand. And then kind of use that seed capital to kind of do another deal, and get going. And then now, to your point on the big land deals, sometimes you will drop, 50 grand, 100 grand in due diligence costs on a single deal. So for example, one deal I just signed, I just wired the earnest money into title this week. It was 30 grand. I mean, I should be getting that back, but I've also spent, 10, 20 grand in design costs, my civil engineers, legal fees. So it is a bigger lift, but really I look at those ones and say, hey, if I have to spend 50 to 100 grand and I can make, substantially more than that, it's a risk I'm willing to take. And then also, since I'm not doing this full time, my cash flow is pretty easy. I don't have, kids I have to support right now. I'm still kind of house hacking. My fixed costs are almost, covered from other deals that are coming in. So really all my income from my job, I can just put that into land.
And how do you think about capital structuring? Like, because before you got a loan from Goldman Sachs. Well, I'm sure you can't get a $15,000 loan on a property you're buying for $500,000. Like, how are you able to overcome those kind of capital constraints since you've moved that way?
Yeah, for the small deals, I've just been funding that myself, 100%. At some point, I should probably bring in some deal guys. I know some guys with capital. I know they'll fund deals if I need capital, but to this point, it really hasn't, just because we're doing a deal or two a month. But really, for the big deals, the last one I got under contract, it was, let's say it's between 5 to 10 million. It's a significant price. Obviously, I don't have that amount of money sitting in the bank, but really, I got it under contract. I control the land for a year and a half, 2 years. Now I can take that contract and go to a larger national builder and say, all right, do you want to partner up on this deal? If they come in at a higher price than what I have it under contract for, that's my spread. But to do that, I got to fund the civil engineering costs, right? There's some due diligence costs. There's the earnest money, that kind of stuff that I'm funding essentially with my own cash. But if I was doing the deal and I didn't have cash, you could probably bring that deal to a deal funder and say, hey, here's my structure. Here's what I need. I need 50, 70 grand. You fund this, I'll give you more upside on the deal. And there's probably some guys out there that would take a swing just because the upside is so big. And there's probably some guys that would look at it and say, no, that's too risky. I don't want to take the chance of losing 50 grand.
How do you feel, like for me, like to me, rural land in Minnesota, I'm in Minnesota, you're in Minnesota. I've done a decent amount of smaller deals, sub 75K. I've never done anything above 75K in Minnesota. I've barely done it in Wisconsin, but not by much on the buy side. I think of Minnesota a lot of the time as being like kind of flat on growth. And like to go and like partner with a home builder, is there a need for housing around here? Yeah, absolutely. But we're not like Texas or Arizona where you have just a ton of building activity going on. What was your vision as a leader that you said there's opportunity here in Minnesota despite some of the demographics when you look at, population growth and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'd say just with my role currently, seeing the huge development projects that's going up, Viking Lakes and Egan, all the jobs that we're bringing out here, the demand for housing, how fast our apartments are leasing up. looking at the inventory on the market. There's nothing for sale. Everybody's sitting on their 3% interest rates. They don't want to sell. So people are looking to move, looking to upsize or just get a new build house. And there's just not that much out there. And then also really just talking with the builders. And they're saying, hey, we really need land right now. We're desperate for land. If you can find us a deal right in this parameters that makes sense, we'll take it down. And there's certain builders that are more aggressive than others. But I would say the upside of kind of Minnesota being a kind of flyover market is there's not as much competition. If I was competing down in a Dallas, a Miami, right, a Phoenix, there's a lot more competition. And also, since I have long-term relationships with a lot of the builders, I've had crossover work with the attorneys that we use, title companies, with the Vikings developments or the Will family developments. In mine, I really got to know a lot of people pretty well, and it just made it a little bit easier for me.
Love it. Well, it sounds like, really your business and where it's going, you're really, what you discovered was these relationships you had were worth their weight in gold, in terms of, how do I leverage these relationships I've built and develop more on top of that? And you're being very strategic from what you said. And hey, I'm going to set aside time in my calendar, get away from tasks and focus on more of that, because that's what's leading to all these opportunities. Am I capturing that right in terms of kind of your vision and where you see things?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. It's like that book that just came out, The Unfair Advantage. Everybody has a certain unfair advantage in their life, no matter who you are. There's something in your life that other people don't have. And for me, that it was really that the job opened so many other doors where if I cold called a builder and explained what I did, full-time job, they'd be like, oh yeah, like you work for the Wilfs, come on down. I know your land business is 100% separate. It's not related, but if you're managing money for them, you're at least to a certain caliber of person, financially, real estate wise, where I'll meet with you. And really, I felt like even negotiating with sellers, there's an added kind of bonus. There's okay, this guy's done deals. He's working for the Wilfs. You're not Joe Schmo down the street trying to call me and buy my $1 million property, because a lot of them have told me, I get cold calls all the time. I don't know the person. I don't know who they are. They have a small little company, and I'm not doing a deal with them.
Interesting. Love it, man. No, that's good stuff. Talk a little bit about with your VA that you have. Sounds like you're really happy with them. What are you doing to motivate that person, and how do you see your team evolving and motivating people in the future?
Sure. I really haven't done any bonus structures for my VAs. It's really just feeding them consistent work. And the more that they work kind of with what I have set out for them, the more they're motivated and kind of willing to do the deals, because they know what I want. I'm not kind of going back and forth saying, no, changing. Hey, this is what I actually wanted. They've done it before. And I think they just want that steady stream of income. But also, I'm not running a team of 10 to 20 VAs. Right. If I was, then you should probably implement some bonus structures and some other stuff to keep them motivated.
What do you see for the business for the future? Like, where do you want it to go? What's your vision for that?
Yeah, I would say probably keep doing the small deals to pay the bills, but really just going after the big, larger deals. Since I'm in the Minnesota market, I've had 7 years of networking kind of to this point, and really 3 to 5 years of kind of networking at that higher level. It's really just, it's a small market overall. It's not a Chicago. It's not a New York. The more people on the multifamily side, the commercial side, I'm in NIOP too, so a ton of connections through that organization as well, just on the commercial and multifamily side. It's really a market I feel like I can succeed in long term and continue to go after those bigger deals.
Do you feel like you're good with one team member, and that's for the foreseeable future of the next year or two? You know what? I'm just keeping one person and some of these subcontractors along the way. Or do you want to add?
I have had people approach me and say, hey, I like what you're doing. Is there any way I could get involved? Even just some motivated friends and whatnot. I actually just had a friend, he got hired at Pulte, one of the builders. I think he saw what I was doing, and he was like, hey, I want to get involved. So now he's just took that job. He's a land acquisition manager at Pulte. Well, hey, now if I get a deal, I can bring it to him. And also I can sit down with him and say, hey, what are you guys looking at? What's your ROI you need to be? What's your development costs? Take it from a raw lot to a finished lot. What are you selling homes for? boom, 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 I'm going to have a lot more data than someone else. But to answer your question, I would bring on someone like that who would go out and find me a deal, and they don't have the know-how, they don't have the capital, but pretty much just find me a deal, tee it up, and now I'll come in, I'll negotiate with the owners. And then if I get that deal under contract, we close it, I'll give you a pretty significant profit split. So that side, I have thought about bringing on one or two people.
Love it. So acquisition specialists, people that have relationships, like you were talking, they're within a home builder, so they're going to know people necessarily you don't know, and have maybe a different skill set to add even in beyond, because you're not like an acquisition specialist yourself and doing what you do in your daytime job. So I'm sure there would be things that come with that. I love it. That's good stuff. And you mentioned earlier a course that you went through. What was the gentleman's name again?
Steve McClatchy.
Steve McClatchy. Do you have any other major resources you think would be good for us to check out? Just like one, like a book. You mentioned earlier, wasn't Who Not How. You said a book.
Buy Back Your Time by Dan.
Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell.
Really
anything else?
I would say if you're looking to improve leadership, Extreme Ownership probably gets mentioned a lot. Jocko Willink. That's just a really good book, just a mindset leadership. Say, hey, if I'm the leader, I'm going to take responsibility for my organization. If there's problems, the buck stops here. I'm going to figure it out.
Awesome. Love it. Well, Austin, this has been great. What a great conversation we've been having. I'm so happy for you and the business you're building. It's so unique and different and cool. And I look forward to seeing it evolve. Any final thoughts you want to leave with us?
I'll just say for the final thought is really what it comes down to in land is just probably gets mentioned a lot, but just stay resilient, stay persistent. There's a lot of times, especially myself, I'm just being 100% open, transparent. When I first started doing these big deals, I got one big deal done. And then there was a 2-year stretch. I didn't do any deals. I'm like, man, is this really worth it? So I kind of took a year off. I was like, all right, regroup. But then I really got back after it. And now that deal I just signed, massive deal, 300 plus homes, multiple phase development. It's worth it. So I guess stay in the game, no matter what you do, just stay in it. Even if you get discouraged, there's going to be hard times, but if you keep at it enough, it's going to pay off in the end.
Well, I think that's not talked about enough is the dips, what we go through at times in being entrepreneurs, because there's not a steady income for most of us. We get the bank balance, it gets to be up 200, 300 grand and we're feeling great about ourselves. And then you see it down to 30 grand and you're like, oh, geez, am I going to be able to keep the lights on? There's that stress involved with it. How are you managing that? Because it sounds like for you took a little bit of time off. How are you managing that stress today as a leader?
Yeah, I would say with the big deals, I would say I didn't know what stress was until I had like a huge deal under contract. I was like, okay, now I got to get this thing done. Waking up in the morning, your mind just goes to the deal. You're like, all right, I got to get this done. So to manage stress, really, like I meditate a lot. I play a lot of sports, hockey, football, pickleball, spend time with the dog. I feel like early on, I was like, all right, I'm going to work 80 hours a week. I'm going to get this thing done, which was helpful for me to get off the ground. But now it's more of how do I work smarter, not harder, and get the business done, but also have something that I like doing. I'm not dreading it. So now I feel like I'm in a good spot where I'm motivated, but I can also scale it up and down or my hours in the business as needed.
Love it. No, that's good stuff, Austin. And if people want to reach out to you, they want to say hi, get to know you, connect, what would be the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn's probably the best way. Austin Hendrickson. You should show controller at MV Ventures. Otherwise, my email is austin@adjacentproperties.com.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone gained a lot of this podcast. I think there's a lot of things to dig into here. And I just want to emphasize to everybody, there's something to be learned. And we can see with Austin running super lean. There's a lot to be learned from the way he's running his business that maybe you could apply versus someone with 20 people. There's a lot to be learned no matter your business size. So Austin, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, appreciate the time, Dave.
Thank you. All right. Well, that wraps up today's episode. If this was helpful, don't just let it live in your head. take one idea from today and actually put it in practice. That, my friends, is where the real progress happens. If you want to check out and keep the conversation going with other land investors like you want to make sure to check out a whole bunch of free resources and talk about challenges that we all go through. Please come and check out our Leadership in Land community on Skool. We've got bonus content, real discussions, and a free leadership course. No hype required at all. Just check out leadershipinland.com or go to Skool, that's SKOOL.com/leadershipinland. Appreciate you being here. Talk soon.